What's up, everybody? Josh Johnson here. I am a kayak fishing guide for the upper coast of Texas, mainly out of the Freeport Surfside area, because that's where I grew up and I live close to here in Brazoria. But anyways, I wanted to go ahead and kind of break down a map of how the wind affects the water levels on our coast, because a lot of our tidal movement here on the coast is controlled by the wind. So all of us guides, we're always paying attention to the wind every single day, because that's going to help us determine where we want to fish, what the water is doing, and what the tide is doing. Now you can look at the tide charts. That's fine. We still have a tide that moves in and out, but when the wind is really blowing, it kind of over trumps what the tide is doing. And so I'm going to try to explain that to you on a map so you can kind of understand, oh, the tide's supposed to be coming in and I went out and it's low tide and the tide's going out. What's going on? Well, I'm going to try to break that down for you guys. I always try to explain this to my clients when I take them out on the water, but I know it's not easy to conceptualize unless you really see it drawn out on a map. It took me a long time just to wrap my head around it so I can understand. For somebody that's newer to fishing, it's hard to wrap your head around it. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a screenshot of Google Maps, and I'm going to use my phone here and kind of draw and explain to you what happens with the different winds and how it affects the movement of the water and the water levels here on the coast. All right, guys, so here is our coast. I had to zoom out a bit because I have hundreds of pins on there, and I don't want y'all pot lickers trying to go fish my spots. So, but anyways, this map is centered with the compass. I drew a compass up top so you can kind of wrap your head around what I'm talking about here. But so basically, the most constant winds that we have throughout the spring and the summer into the fall is southeast winds, right? So southeast coming from this way, and east winds. We have a lot of east winds, right? So when you have southeast and east winds, that's going to be blowing the water in, okay? So the water's going to get blown more in to the bays and to the marsh. And if we have really strong east and southeast winds, it's going to blow in even more, and we're going to have high water levels, all right? So east, southeast blows the waters in. Now, here lately, as we get into the fall time, we've been having a lot of northeast winds. Now, you'd think any kind of north winds would blow the water out, right? Coming from the north. But because it's northeast and there's still some easterly winds in there, it's actually going to be blowing the water in still. It's kind of weird, but that's how it works. It's one reason why we have such high water levels right now, because we've been having a lot of northeast winds and east winds. So the water is super high right now. And normally this time of year, we would have already had a couple strong cold fronts come through. And when we have strong cold fronts come through, we get northwest, right? Northwest, right? So that blows the water out of our bays and our marsh. Now I'm talking about the upper coast. The middle coast and the south coast is a little bit different because of the way that it's angled here. It's a little bit different. So we're talking about the upper coast. So northwest and west winds, even southwest, blows the water out, right? West, southwest, northwest. That's going to be blowing the water out. All right. So we're supposed to get our first real cold front next Wednesday. And if you look on Google or Windfinder or whatever app you use, you can see we're going to be getting some strong northwest winds. So that's going to dump the water out, and it's going to bring the water levels back down. And that's what we want, especially when you're chasing redfish, because it's going to pull all those redfish out of the grass and all the shrimp and bait out of the grass. And those redfish and trout that are out there are going to go crazy. So I hope that kind of breaks it down for you guys. There's a lot more to it than that, But that's just a general breakdown of how the wind controls the water levels. All right, guys, I hope that kind of broke it down for you. There's a lot of little nuances and stuff that goes on with everything that I said, but that's a general breakdown of how the wind controls the water levels here on the upper coast. A lot of us fishermen are frustrated right now because this time of year we would have had a couple strong cold fronts already with those northwest winds to blow the water out. It helps the shrimp to move out because all the shrimp, the bigger shrimp, move out into the Gulf whenever this happens. That's when you start to see a lot of schooling reds chasing those shrimp as they get moved out. And then once the shrimp get fully flushed out, then it's just mullet out there for the redfish to hone in on. And after everything gets pulled out, those redfish get really thick in the back lakes and the bays and the drains as those fronts are pushing that bait and water out. And so a lot of us fishermen have been really frustrated because this time of year we're expecting to see tons of redfish and schooling redfish up shallow everywhere. But because we haven't had that first strong cold front yet, and we've been having a lot of northeast and east winds, the water is super high right now, and that's got the fish spread out, right? The higher the water is, the more area there is for these fish to travel and to find bait fish. Not only that, but these fish are also going to try to get up shallow as much as they can because it's a security blanket to them. Because when that tide comes in strong, what else comes in strong to eat fish? Shark and dolphin, right? And that's why people have been catching black tips and stuff like that in the bays and the marsh, because the tide is so high that, imagine all that water from the Gulf getting pushed in. Of course, some sharks are going to follow all that stuff that's getting pushed in, right? That's an easy meal up in the bays and the shallows. So anyways, if you've been having a hard time fishing lately, just know you're not alone. The fish are spread out. What we want is some strong cold fronts, some northwest winds, and that's going to congregate everything, right? Because that's going to bring the water out of all those pastures and that grass where the water is not supposed to be. And it's going to make that water low, and it's going to congregate all the fish. It's going to pull all the bait out, and fishing is going to get real easy. So I'm really looking forward to this cold front we're going to get next Wednesday. And after we get a couple of good cold fronts, fishing's going to be insanely easy in the marsh, and I can't wait. So that's about it, guys. Hope this helped you out. If you want to see more stuff like this, just follow my page. And if you want to learn a lot more out on the water, you can book a trip with me to go out on the kayaks in the marsh. And I hope this helped you out today. God bless.